I've talked to a lot of homeowners who almost didn't go solar because of something they read online. And then there's a whole other group, people who already have solar, spent $30,000, $40,000, sometimes more, and they're genuinely frustrated because something in their home isn't behaving the way they expected it to. Here's what I need to tell both groups right now. In almost every one of those situations, the problem was never the solar panels. The problem was how the system was designed. Today, I'm going to clear up one of the most misunderstood topics in all of residential solar. What can solar panels actually power? And more importantly, what does it actually take to run the appliances that matter most in your home? Hey everyone, welcome back to IntegrateSun. First, I want to reframe this whole conversation, because when someone types, "What appliances can solar panels run?" what they're really asking underneath that question is solar going to limit my life? And that's a completely reasonable fear, but notice what that question does. It puts the limitation on the solar panels themselves. And that is the wrong place to look. Solar panels are a power source, a clean, cost-effective, 25-year power source. And like any power source, what it can run depends entirely on how much of it you have, how that power is stored and managed, and how the whole system was designed for your specific home. The better question is, what does it take to run my appliances on solar? That question has a real calculable engineering answer. And once you understand it, most of the fear disappears. So let's walk through the three categories that come up in our consultations constantly: air conditioners and HVAC, EV chargers, and high-wattage appliances like electric stoves, ovens, and dryers. This is the #1 fear we hear, especially from homeowners in Texas, Florida, and Arizona. My AC runs constantly in the summer. Can solar even handle that? Yes, it absolutely can. But there's a critical detail that you need to know up front. A central air conditioning unit draws somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 running watts, depending on its size. People see that number, look at their 8-kilowatt solar system, do rough math in their head, and think, okay, should be fine. And on paper, they're right. But really, here's what they don't know. Air conditioners, and really anything with a compressor motor, have two very different wattage numbers. There's the running wattage, which is what the unit draws once it's operating steadily. And then there's the startup surge wattage, the spike of power needed to kick that compressor motor to life. That surge can be 2 to 3 times the running wattage, sometimes higher. So a 3,500 watt central AC unit might need 9,000 to 10,000 watts just to start. And if your inverter, the component that converts solar power into usable electricity for your home, isn't rated to handle that surge, the system either shuts down or fails to start the unit at all. Not because solar can't run your AC, because the inverter was sized for average loads, not the real peak demands of your home. This is one of the most common design mistakes we see in proposals from other installers. A properly designed system models your surge capacity. It accounts for those peak moments. And yes, it can absolutely handle your central AC. One more thing I need to say here, because I'd be doing you a disservice if I skipped it. If you have a grid-tied solar system without battery backup, meaning your panels connect to the grid but you have no batteries, your AC will run fine on a normal day. But the moment the grid goes down, your system shuts off automatically by code, even if the sun is blazing overhead. So on the hottest, most dangerous day of the year, when the grid fails and you desperately need your AC, a system without battery backup is going to let you down. That's not a solar limitation. That's a system design decision that wasn't made with your full situation in mind. Okay, so here's one that genuinely surprises people when they hear the answer. EV charging might actually be one of the best use cases for solar, if your system was designed with it in mind. A standard level 2 home charger draws around 7,200 watts. That sounds like a lot. But think about when most people charge their EV overnight, when solar produces zero power, which means even with panels on the roof, most homeowners are pulling entirely from the grid to charge their car. The smarter move, and this is something we walk homeowners through, is shifting your charging window to the middle of the day, when your solar system is producing maximum output. A properly sized 10 to 12 kilowatt system in a sunny state generates roughly 40 to 55 kilowatt hours on a good production day. A typical EV needs somewhere between 25 and 35 kilowatt hours for a full charge from empty. The math works. Solar can power your EV, but only if your system was sized with that load in mind and you're strategic about your charging schedule. Then there's the electric stoves, oven, and dryers. This is the category that scares people most because the raw wattage numbers look alarming. An electric stove burner draws 1,000 to 3,000 watts. An electric oven can hit 2,000 to 5,000 watts while preheating. An electric dryer runs between 4,000 and 6,000 watts. If you're reading those numbers right now, I understand exactly why solar feels like it can't keep up. But here's the insight that almost nobody talks about, and it genuinely changes the conversation. High wattage does not mean high energy. Wattage measures the rate of power draw at any given moment. Kilowatt hours measure the total energy consumed. Those are completely different things, and the distinction matters enormously when you're thinking about appliances. Your electric dryer might run at 5,000 watts, but a typical cycle runs for 45 minutes. That's 3.75 kilowatt hours per load. A 10 kilowatt solar system generates 3.75 kilowatt hours in about 22 minutes of peak afternoon sun. The appliance sounds enormous. The actual energy it consumes is very manageable. Same logic applies to your oven. It preheats at high wattage for 10 to 15 minutes, then cycles on and off to hold temperature. A typical meal might use 1.5 to 2 kilowatt hours. Your solar system can handle that without blinking. So where does the frustration come from? Two places. First, again, the inverter. If multiple high-draw appliances are running simultaneously and your inverter can't handle that combined peak, you'll trip the system. Second, and this is the core problem, installers who size systems for average daily consumption instead of real lifestyle peaks. Okay, so what genuinely can't run on solar? I want to be real with you here because this channel doesn't sugarcoat things. There is a narrow category where solar has genuine constraints. If someone in your home depends on life-critical medical equipment, we're talking about devices like home dialysis machines or ventilators that cannot tolerate even a fraction of a second of power interruption. Solar alone is not a complete solution. You need a system specifically engineered with medical-grade continuity, robust battery backup, the right transfer equipment, and likely a generator as an additional layer. Solar can absolutely be part of that setup, but it requires careful design far beyond a standard residential installation. Outside of that, the list is genuinely short. The technology handles almost everything a modern home demands. The answer to what can't run on solar is not a list of appliances. It's a list of design failures. I want to leave you with something concrete you can take away from this. The reason this myth persists, the idea that solar can't handle the big stuff, almost always traces back to three recurring mistakes in how systems get sold. The first is sizing for average consumption instead of real peak demand. Your utility bill shows kilowatt hours consumed per month. It doesn't show the moments where multiple high-draw appliances run simultaneously or the startup surge when your AC compressor kicks on. The second is inverter mismatches and missing surge capacity. The third is selling grid-tied only systems to people who actually care about backup power. If you've told your installer, or even just assumed, that you want your home to keep running during an outage, a grid-tied system without battery backup will fail you at exactly the wrong moment. Not because solar failed, because the design was incomplete for what you actually needed. A well-designed system anticipates all three of these things from the start. And that's why the design conversation matters so much before you spend $1 on equipment. And that's exactly what a free consultation with us is about. We look at your actual appliance loads, your usage patterns, your backup power needs, and what you're hoping to accomplish. Then we tell you exactly what a system would need to look like to do it right. The link to book that conversation is in the description below. If this video was helpful, please hit like and subscribe. It helps more homeowners find this kind of honest content instead of the stuff that's designed to just sell them something. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.